Hey Steve, what's up?
Yo, hey, what's up, man?
How are you? I'm
All
Tom.
right,
Good to
Tom.
meet you.
Good. Yeah, likewise.
How's everything?
Well, everything's good, man. How are you?
Doing good, man. I'm just glad I got a hold of you, to do this interview.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. I'm excited to do it.
Awesome. I want to, definitely talk about some of your history, talk about your work with Avant, some of your other hits. I looked
hmm
up your whole discography. Obviously, I know a lot of your music already, but I wanted to make sure I didn't miss any of the gems. So let's
Yeah.
we'll start at the beginning though. Take me back to your first placement as a producer and songwriter. What you remember about that and which placement it was.
Oh man. Ooh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you
I'm
now.
back. Yeah, I'm back. All right.
Okay.
Somebody's trying to call. So, I started out my history starting out as was like gospel music.
Hmm.
So I'm a like church baby, learned to play bass. I'm a bass player by trade, so I learned to play bass in church. And so gospel was like the first music that I started, and my first placement was with Fred Hammond of Commission, the
Wow.
group Commission. Yeah,
Yeah.
if you're familiar. Yeah, and it was an exciting opportunity. I mean, especially with somebody as big as him at the time. We were, playing and touring because I started out touring bass, and so we both played for the Winans, and
Mm.
so we admired one another. So when he went solo, actually from the group, my first placement was with him, and I mean it was a great. No. But yeah, so your feeling was great, man. It was really it was a great feeling, kind of surreal. Then music has been my life, and then to
Yeah.
think, what I mean, like certain people that I grew up listening to, grew up loving, and then I end up working with and end up producing. And Fred Hammond, I mean, at that time, that was like a serious plug. And went to Detroit. We went down. I went down and ended up, supposed to do one song, and hey, what else you got? And
Yeah.
ended up being like two or three songs, and I worked with two or three of his other groups at the time. So I made like three placements off of one, my first placement. So,
Nice.
just a great feeling, but a sign of things to come. I think, it was a
Right.
sign of maybe me being a musician and turning into producer. Maybe that's something I needed to really consider.
Right.
I never set out to be like, oh, I want to be a producer.
Yeah.
That's really what I want to be. I was a musician, and I was playing and making a lot of making great money touring. But in my head, I knew there was something more as far as being able to leave a legacy, with songs, because songs are forever.
Right.
The world can blow up, and songs
Yeah.
are still going to be here. So it's
Exactly.
great. It was great. Fred Hammond, though. Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. So obviously, I first took notice of your work when you did Avant's debut album, My Thoughts,
Yeah.
2000. I can still remember where I was when I bought the CD. As an
Oh
R&B
wow.
lover. But reading the history of that album,
hmm
separated the first single. You guys put that out before he even signed, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
take us through even how you met Avant and then working that single and all that.
Yeah. So before in like what was it, 98 or 98 or 9, I went on tour with R. Kelly. It was the Mr. Biggs tour
Oh, okay.
with the whole Brown Isley and the Down Low and that whole thing. And so Avant's manager at the time, actually his name is Eric Payton, he was on tour, and we did a world tour. We did the leg overseas, and then we did the US side. And I just remember this guy. He was always around. He actually was responsible for discovering R. Kelly. His name's Eric Payton. So I would see him on, he was always around. We never really spoke, but after tour was over, um, I actually saw him on Michigan Avenue, like, walking. I was actually with Sparkle at the time, which was
Oh
R.
wow.
Kelly's artist, and we were dating at the time, and we bumped into one another right on this main thoroughfare, and he just pulled over, and he's like, "Yo," and I'm like, "Yo, man, I remember, I remember you from tour, like what's happening, what's going on?" He's like, "Man, you produce, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. What's happening?" He's like, "Man, I got this guy, man. He's from Cleveland. His name is Avant. He's super dope. He's super dope, man. And it's like, he got some demos. I've been trying to get him a deal, but doesn't really, like, I want to play the demo for you, but it doesn't really sound good." But at that point,
Oh,
producers can hear through demos. I just needed to hear the first second, and I would know. If I was interested in it, I would know his ability. And so we pulled over, and he played a couple demos that were, they were okay, when you're
yeah.
trying to, at that time, trying to make things happen. But I could hear his voice, I could hear his tone, I could hear his passion. It was almost like I was hearing somebody that I knew. So he said, "Man, do you mind if I call him, on the phone?" And I'm like, "Yeah, hit it, call him." So he called him, he picked right up. "Yo, what's up, E? What's good here, man? That's Guy, man. We've been on tour, with R. Kelly." It's like, "Man, I just played him your demo, man. He want to do some stuff with you, He's like, "Man." So we talked, and immediately he just starts singing. Avant, Avant is a testament and a blueprint for anybody trying to make it in this game as an artist, is being ready to sing. I
Yeah.
sing. Well, let me hear you something. Yeah, I didn't even have to ask him. He just started singing all kind of songs. So immediately I was like, "Yo, I'm in. Listen, what I'm gonna do," I said, "I'm gonna give you a call." Got his number. I said, "And I'm gonna write 3 tracks, and I'm gonna send them to, or we're gonna work over the phone." So before social media, before any of that, we wrote these songs over the phone, and then he flew
Mm.
in like maybe a month or so later. I had the tracks ready, and he came to town, and actually my engineer Peter Mokran, who actually was R. Kelly's engineer at the time, he had moved to LA. He came back for Christmas break, and he heard the stuff, and he's like, "Hey, man, this is so hot, man. I'll mix it for free."
Wow.
He's like, it was like kind of one of those surreal kind of right
Yeah.
place, right time. I had these relationships as well, and like and Eric Payton was making moves with his manager at the time, was making moves with him as well. And so he flew in, we cut the songs, we mixed the songs, we went to GCI. Trying to remember the program director at the time, but we mixed it, we mastered 3 songs, and we took it to GCI, and he was like, "Oh, I love this." It was all love, like out of the gate, and
Wow.
he started playing the song. Actually, it was a song called "I Want to Know," that was the local song that blew up first,
Wow.
and he started playing. He used to have a top 9 at 9, and I remember when they first played it. It started out slow rotation, which would be, like 10 o'clock, 11,
Yeah.
midnight. And I remember somebody said, "Man, I heard your song," called me, said, "I heard your song on the radio, man, Avant, man, oh my God." And I remember I turned the radio on, and it was going off, and they were like, "Okay, this is new, something from Chicago, blase." And I remember a cab driver called. He's like, "Man, I'm a cab driver, and you played a song. Could you play it one more time? Could you just please play it one more time?"
Wow.
And the cool thing, they were like, "You know what? We're going to spin it again." They
Wow.
spent it again. And so 3 days later, he was like at like 9, at the top 9 at 9. And then like 4 days later, he was number 1. He was the
Wow.
top at 9 at 9 again. And then the snowball started happening from that point. So we technically met on the street, on the phone.
That's
Yeah,
amazing, man.
yeah,
I love
yeah,
that story.
yeah.
So the My Thoughts album, like we mentioned, just celebrated 20th anniversary. What do you remember about? You said there was 3 songs you had created prior to the getting signed. What do you remember about creating the rest of the album?
So I was living in Indianapolis at the time. So I was living actually Chicago and Indianapolis. My attorney was in Indianapolis. We built a studio there. So and that's where I met KeKe Wyatt. That's kind of, we'll get to that, but so I was kind of in transition back to Chicago, and we started. There was an Amish guy who had a studio.
Interesting.
On the north side in his basement. I'm talking about washer and dryer, speaker, board. I brought my gear. We found him. It was called Horse Drawn Productions.
Oh my goodness.
This is
You can't make this up.
You can't make this up. It's called Horse Drawn Production. I will never forget him. I forget his name at the moment, but because actually you're bringing a lot of memories up.
Yeah.
And we got in there, man. We got in the studio, and he had a really good sound, man. And we were recording, man, the entire album in this guy's basement, man. And we couldn't work on the weekends because religiously, they can't power. It was that whole thing, bro. So we just really got real cool, real close. Avant flew in. We cut the vocals for the entire album. And, it was like Avant became instantly my brother because, when you record and when you got a vibe and, the creative thing. And then we were kind of like, we were just, like we just hit it off. We really, really hit it off. And so we were kind of inseparable. So Avant was from Cleveland, but he was pretty much living in Chicago at that point on. And so we just were working there every day. We were cutting songs every day. I cut a song, I cut a track. He come in, man, I hear something, we hear a hook. We write the song. I might have a hook. He comes in. I would normally like get a track going of some sort or some kind. And that was the experience of the album. It was in a dark basement.
That's amazing.
Of an Amish engineer who was super awesome, and we cut that entire album there. Peter and Mokran ended up mixing it again mixing that project, and we went everywhere. Everybody loved it. Everybody was excited, and then next 3 days, we're not interested. We're not interested. Sounds too much like R. Kelly. We have this. We have that. We went to every label. We had home numbers. Back then we had fax numbers. We had every number, the house number, everything. This is going to be crazy. Oh my God. And then 3 days later, it was like, we're not interested. So we went, you're talking about, you only need one yes.
Yeah.
Be encouraged. You know what I'm saying? Guys making music, producing, writing songs. No matter, you got to get no's to be initiated. You know what I'm saying? Consecrated and baptized into this game. And I recall, so the song started blowing up. Avant in Chicago was lit, and people were interested, but they canceled. Remember, MCA had made a commitment. And MCA actually came back and said, we're not interested again. So it's like, man, what is this? Because we knew the music was lit. We know the album is dope. Yeah. And let me tell you what happened. Peter Mokran, the engineer, I'm bringing his name up because in L.A., he had moved back to L.A. He went back to L.A. There was a production assistant or something, a guy friend that will come and, one of the guys like, can I hang out? Can I assist you? I'll get coffee. I'll do whatever. And this guy worked for Magic Johnson.
Oh, man.
Bro.
It's unbelievable.
Tom, Magic Johnson had just struck the deal with MCA Records. And when MCA refused a month later, he walked into his office and said, what the fuck is who like this guy's like playing it loud, like getting the office ready for the day. And Magic's just like, what is that? Who is that? Get him on the phone. Next thing I know, Magic's all our phones, flies to LA, picks me up in his Continental pink, sky blue, white rag top, Continental T, Rolls Royce, and the rest is history.
That's unbelievable. That story is unbelievable.
That's a crazy story, right? And it was impossible to stop At that time, that project, because Chicago was rocking so hard with it, and it was impossible. I mean, um, uh, his name is going to come back to me, the program director, but he broke.
Yeah.
Chicago broke everybody, broke,
Yeah.
uh, um, everybody. Chicago
Yeah.
was the mecca, and so we were getting these plays right under Jay-Z. Whoever
Yeah.
was out, Avant was just staying there, and records would come and go in between. He'd be number 4, he'd be number 3, he'd be number 2. So while all of this, hip hop, urban music was going, Avant was just staying in the top
Yeah.
5 and the top 10, and so it was just amazing. It was amazing, and that album went multi-platinum, and
Yeah.
a bunch of singles, and yeah. So
I mean, there's so many songs I would love to touch on. We don't have a whole lot of time, but
yeah,
I love the song "Getaway." Man, I always feel like that could have been a single. But I want to talk
Yes.
about the duets with KeKe Wyatt that you did, not only for his album but for her album as well. Talk about how those came together.
Yeah, so when Avant got the deal and we put Separated out, I had still had KeKe Wyatt in my back pocket, and she was in Indianapolis. And so when I would go back and forth there, because I had a studio there as well, and a friend of mine, a guy named Chris Kelly, he let me hear her sing, and she had a big name there in Indianapolis, and it was I mean, I don't have to say anything about her ability and her talent. And I met her mom and dad and family, and I just told her, I said, I guarantee you, as long as I'm alive, I'm going to see to it that you are out and that you make it, because the world has to hear you sing, blah, 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 all of that. And so Avant got the deal. We came out, we're separated. And then I decided to, as we were doing back then, to piggyback an artist, on the coattails of another artist. And so My First Love, which is a song that Angela Winbush wrote, Renee and Angela, I wanted to do something to honor her. I was just getting to know her, and I loved that song, of course. And then I remember I brought the Chicago Symphony Orchestra in to do live strings on it. And so always in my mind, always in my head, I was going to put KeKe on the song. He heard her. I brought the idea to him. He was like, oh, man, of course, KeKe Wyatt. We made it happen. She came in, sang it, and killed it, and mixed it. And so I put that out second. We put that out second, and then that was what ushered her deal and album with MCA Records. So that was just a really dope time. So that was that you were mentioning some of the songs. That was why the second song was My First Love, to get KeKe out, and yeah, man.
And then the rest was history for her as well. I mean,
the rest was history. Yeah. Produced her full album. Her album went platinum right away, went gold, went platinum right away. And it is just, I've been blessed, man, to work with some amazingly talented people doing what I do. And I mean, these songs, man, still to this day, are still being played,
I got to mention a song that I've always loved that you did, the Isley Brothers song you put Avant on, Secret Lover.
Yes.
And that song, to this day, I still play it in heavy rotation. That was such an amazing song.
Yeah, that was another double platinum record. I did that record. I did myself, Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis, R. Kelly, and Raphael Sadiq.
So,
and that was that was an amazing album as well. Yeah.
And then you did some work on Dave Hollister's album, Chicago '85, the movie as well.
Yeah. And Dave is, we go back like church guys. So I knew him from church, and we were brothers, and he was, from Chicago or Indiana or something like that. But either way, we knew one another, and eventually it was, like the people started calling saying, hey, give me, man, I need a track. Yeah. And so we linked up, and he came in, and that was another great album as well. Yeah, he's a great singer. Yeah.
I want to touch on all these albums you worked with Avant on. So you came back with Ecstasy, his second album. Right. You came with that huge single, Making Good Love. What do you remember approaching that album, after coming off the huge success of the first one?
Yeah. So funny thing is, I ended up I ended up with the opportunity to buy Battery Studios in Chicago, so that
Oh,
which is Jive Records owned, New York, Chicago, London, I think maybe LA, something like that. But I was booking it out of pocket, and pretty much because R. Kelly had all the studios sold up at that particular time. But
wow. Damn.
yeah, but I started like paying out of pocket, and I don't know if he heard I was over there, and then he like, oh, I'm not gonna work there good because that.
That's insane. Damn.
Oh boy, the tea I could spill, but we don't have the
Yeah,
time.
it's all right.
So I started just paying out of pocket, and we were getting ready for the next project. So it was at that point I was like cutting songs, and I went from like bass player touring to Avant's thing starting up, that album heating up, and then I kind of like got off the tour stuff and started just going in the studio and producing, writing tracks, writing songs, so on and so forth. So when it came time for to work on the second album, I had a bunch of stuff done, and it was just a matter of Avant coming in, KeKe check him into his hotel, go shoot some pool, go bowling, call some females, go, you know what I mean, and then get ready the next day, and just from morning to night. Hey, man, I was, thinking I had this idea. So Avant would come with a lot of ideas that he would, of course, as a writer, and so they would either fit with a song, or I would make something to go with it, and then we'd write the song, or I'd already have something, and then we write from scratch with that. And so, Making Good Love, man, honestly, when I look at it in retrospect, it's really a kind of borrow from Benny and the Jets.
Okay. I never thought about
we we make good love all night when we make love all
You shouldn't say
talking
it too
about-
loud. You never
Right.
know.
Well, it's even back then I made sure that there was, what I'm saying? No, yeah. So it was, and at that time, labels, they had a complete division on samples. So it would go through rigorous scrutiny. And there's some songs that sounded nothing like other songs that I ended up having to give publishing away because they just didn't want to run into any problems. But yeah, that song was just we were just vibing, man. We were just writing, man, just coming up with, whatever we felt at the time was cool, was the tone back then. And really it was about love making and the love scene and all of that. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
Dope album. And then you had a song with Joe, Treat Her Like a Lady.
Mm-hmm.
Became a single as well. You remember that one? What do you remember about that one?
Yeah. That was one that I remember. I had catching the vibe. I was writing and I grabbed my guitar, and I remember I was playing, and I just remember when I remember Al Green did that one song. I can't remember the name of it, it's slipping my mind, but you could hear him, like dun, 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 dun. You hear him stumping. And I turned the mic on, went in the studio, and started stumping on the ground. So I recorded that, put drums to it, and I wrote that song in like 15 minutes. Tell me, when was the last time you brought her roses home from work? Tell me, when was the last time you rubbed her feet when she said they hurt? Boom. Tell me, when was the last time you wrote a card to tell her how you feel? Tell me, when was the last time you stopped to cook her a late night meal? Tell me, how long will it be before you treat her like your queen? I wrote that song. Avant didn't want to do that one.
We didn't know you had vocals, man. I didn't know.
Oh, yeah,
I had no idea.
I have an album out called
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Did it last year. Yeah, I still Steve Stone Huff, I promise. But so what happened when I was working in the studio, it was Jive Studio. The studio manager was in charge of that was Britney Spears, Justin, the jive was going nuts. And the manager of the studio, DJ Wayne Williams, actually heard the song, and he was like, "Don't play this for nobody. Don't let nobody hear this. Dude, promise me." I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "I'm gonna call you tomorrow." And he called me tomorrow. He called me the next day. He's like, he called a label, actually. Got the song to the label. The president was like, Joe heard it. Get to Chicago immediately. Came to Chicago. Yes, came to Chicago. Teddy Riley had did the majority, if not his whole album, and then Joe produced. The album was done, and they said it's not done till we do that song. We cut that song, and that ended up being the first single. So me, Teddy Riley was in the studio, and he was at Battery in New York. So I cracked a joke cutting the song with the president, because he loved this song so much. He was very involved. He'd come to the studio and listen, and and I said, "Man, I know they were getting out of the studio business in Chicago." And I said, "Man, you should sell me the studio." He said, "What?" So you should sell me Battery in Chicago. And he was like, "Yeah, you want me to sell you? Yeah, okay, Steve. That's a good one. That's a good one." I said, "You closing it down, right?" He said, "Yeah, we're thinking about it, So he's like, "But we whatever." I wake up the next morning to come in and cut vocals on Joe, and I get a call to go see Business Affairs. "So you want to buy the studio? We want you to have the studio. So We're going to give you the studio. We're going to pay half for the studio. So $1 million studio, SSL, everything but we're going to give it to you for $250. We're going to pay the other $250, and we will pay your employees for 6 months. And we'll give you 6 months to pay for the studio." Paid them cash in 6 months. They paid the employees for 6 months, and then I owned the studio, and that's how I ended up buying Battery Studio. So now I no longer had to book it.
Yeah.
It was my studio, and that's where I was working every day. And so now Avant comes, and we basically would sleep at the studio, party at the studio, after hours at the studio, literally living at the studio. Yeah.
That's it.
That's a crazy story, right?
That is. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And they gave me a publishing deal as well.
Wow.
Offer treat her like a lady. That really made some people in Chicago super pissed.
Oh, jeez.
Artists super pissed, super hating me.
I can imagine.
Super wanting me eliminated. Like a lot of tea we could go into. But
okay, we'll move on. I gotta go into the next Avant album, Private Room.
Yes.
And in my opinion, I love your work on the first two albums. I believe this was your strongest work for Avant.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Yeah.
From the intro, the song AV, Read Your Mind, Don't Take Your Love Away.
Yeah.
Seems to Be, I love that one too. Everything about that one too. Yeah. I mean, I love those songs. I mean, talk about creating that album.
Yeah, we were in a real serious groove at that point, and I was kind of like, I was making songs every day at that point, and I'm a bass player. I didn't learn classically. I learned to play by ear, like I said, in church. So, everything was really about I remember I made that approached that album from a bass player's standpoint. And, that record was just at a very good time. I think, we were, we were on the crazy thing. We were working so much that we were working, and songs we just were doing what we do. It was really nothing other than, us getting in. I remember when he came, and the first thing I had was dun, 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 dun. He said, he walked in the door from the airport. "I can read your mind, babe. I know what you're thinking. It's all right." Boop, 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 boop. I wanted to make the song just very minimal and just soft, but thumping with the bass. And that's what started that project.
Wow. That's dope,
You
man.
know, and I love the old school, so you know, don't take your love away. It's like songs like that, like I can write like that stuff, like because I grew up on soul music, so you know, dun 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 dun. Then I brought the Chicago Symphony Orchestra back in for that song.
That's so epic.
Yeah. There's a guy, Tom, who did horns for, you know, Phil Collins, Earth, Wind and Fire. He was a good friend, OG, triple OG back then. And I knew him. He knew the work. And he's like, man, you need to make something, man, for me to, you know what I mean? I got something else. Let me write some more. And he did the string arrangements for that. So that was a great album as well. But it was just a vibe, man. It was just a vibe. To this day.
You know, there's so much I could talk about what you've done with Avant. I wouldn't even talk about his director album. I love the song you did on there, Right Place, Wrong Time.
Right.
Absolutely love that song. But there's so many. But, you know, since we're almost out of time, you know, we could be talking for so long. Everything. Why don't you catch us up about some of the recent stuff? I feel so bad I missed the album you had out. We definitely got to support that now on the site and everything. But talk about some of the more recent stuff you've had going on and what we can expect next from you.
Yeah, so my project is called I Promise. Check it out. It's basically reminiscent of my production. I think I did 14 songs on that landed a deal with Empire Distribution. And yeah, so you can go check that out on all of the social sites. Videos as well. I cut videos on I think 4 or 5 of the songs. I'm working on a new project now, and I'm working on about 3 albums now, some known, some new artists. The known ones, just because right now it's not really a secret, it's just right now, so some people don't need to know that.
Gotcha.
Now, but yeah, I'm still working. My daughter Micah J, Huff, Micah J, she's a 14-year-old rapper in Atlanta. We're about to finish her album up. She's blowing up and, you know, heat seeking in Atlanta. Then my son Caleb James did some songs on him. He's part of the Save Money collection, which is Chance the Rapper, Vic Menza, Joey Perb. This is rap stuff. So yeah, I'm still writing, still creating, still producing.
Awesome. You know, I gotta say, thinking real quick about this interview and the stories you shared with us, I'll never think about Avant the same way. That debut album, recording that album in the Amish kid's basement, the grind that happened, like I will appreciate it so much more knowing what went into that.
That whole story, with every bit of it was true. And you know, there's more to it, but that was really an amazing experience that we had. It was, you know, and I was bargaining, you know, things happen in the basement. You know what I mean? It's when you get out of the basement that things kind of lack. But when you grinding in the basement, going hard, that's where you make your best stuff. But that is like a capsule of a memory that we will always share. And that was the inception of my production career. I mean, I was making, you know, because I play with Yolanda Adams, you know, the gospel stuff I was doing a lot. I actually walked away from that to do R&B. So that was just the first big placements with R&B, but that was a cherished time. And the funny thing is, I didn't really remember it until you made me think of it again. Now I have.
But that's the great thing. Now I can help share that story. We'll publicize this, you know, get it out.
Absolutely. And any other time, man, you want to talk, I really appreciate you thinking of me, considering me, man, to interview me, and you know, anything you need. I appreciate your support and everything that you're doing, man.
Yeah, Steve, I appreciate it. Let's do this again soon. Catch up some more.
Anytime. Just let me know.
Keep us posted on what you got coming out. Just hit me up. We'll get it featured on the site, social media. Cool, man.
Okay, man.
Steve.
All right, bro.
You.
Tom, you
care.
too. Peace, man. Peace. All right.